Hi, Fountain 8. This is Mrs. Guido. I wanted to share a video and audio, I guess just audio, of me reading your homework text for tonight. When you look at the document, you'll notice there are two versions of the text. Same ideas, same questions, just different language. So I'm going to read version 1 and version 2. As you read, consider the questions at the bottom of the page. Number 1, what was the first source of energy for powering trains? Why was it important to develop a standard gauge for rail lines? The second question, what was the first material used to make the rails? And what came next? And how was this an improvement? The third question, how did the refrigerated train car impact the economy? And in this answer, make sure you mention another industry of how it impacted that. And then number 4, how did the nationwide rail network impact the economy and society? How might these expanded rail networks have impacted the natural environment of the United States? And for this one, we want you to think beyond the text based on what you've read and the information that you've received. So, version number 1, the driving force of transportation. As companies gathered more raw materials and produced more products, they needed better transportation networks to move raw materials to factories and to move products from factories to stores. Railroads solved this problem. In 1829, George Stephenson, an English engineer, developed the first public railroad, which used a steam locomotive for power. A steam locomotive pulls the weight of the train cars using the power generated by a water boiler and a system of exhausting the steam to create a draft in its firebox. The firebox is the area of the engine where fuel, such as wood or coal, is burned, producing heat to boil the water and create steam. The draft mechanism draws huge amounts of air through the firebox, allowing fuel to be burned rapidly. Stephenson also developed a standard gauge for all railroads, 4 feet, 8.5 inches. The gauge is the width between the inside sections of running railroad tracks. The cost of constructing and operating a rail line depends on the gauge size, and numerous gauges were used in early rail systems to save money or improve stability. Soon, railroads throughout Europe and the United States adopted Stephenson's gauge as the standard size. A number of technological changes helped railways provide safer and more efficient transportation. In 1869, a U.S. inventor, George Westinghouse, developed an air brake that could automatically stop a train. Before air brakes, the early brake system on trains required that an operator or brakeman physically apply a handbrake in each car, signaled by the train engineer. Air brakes significantly enhanced the safety of speeding locomotives. In addition, by the 1870s, railroad companies began to use steel for rails, which were much more durable than iron rails. Steel rails broke less often and could carry heavier loads of cargo. The development of the refrigerated railroad car enabled companies to transport fresh meat to markets far away. The demand for fresh meat in these markets was high, and meatpacking became a profitable industry. As these new developments helped to expand the railroad industry, several companies rushed to build and complete rail lines after the Civil War, which created competition in the railroad industry. The competition between these businesses helped keep fare costs lower for riders. No single company could charge too much because customers were able to find a competing railway line with less expensive fare. Soon, railroads expanded into a nationwide network. The Union Pacific and Central Pacific Railroads completed a transcontinental railroad in 1869. The success of new rail lines in the West was partially due to the consolidation, or combination, of older railroad companies in the East during the late 1800s. Through the consolidation of several networks, passengers were able to travel on many of the company's lines at a low cost. Now, Many more raw materials, goods, and people could be transported coast to coast in a week instead of months. Before long, other railroad lines crossed the country. In addition to goods, the rail cars brought people in search of new opportunities. At this point in this recording, if you would like to answer the questions based on the text we just read together, feel free to stop and close it out. If you would like to hear the text, a different version of the text, version number 2, please keep listening. Again, same information, same questions, different language. Version number 2, trains, a big part of transportation. Back when companies needed to move resources and materials for making products, they had to figure out better ways to do it. Trains came to the rescue. In 1829, an engineer named George Stephenson from England made the first public train. It was a special train because it used steam to move. The train had a big water boiler to make the steam and a clever system to keep the fire going. The fire made the train go by heating the water, and the steam made it move. Mr. Stevenson also made a rule about how wide the train track should be, using a quote unquote standard gauge. This rule helped all the trains work together and it made things easier. Trains got safer and faster with time. A man named George Westinghouse made a special brake that could stop a train without someone needing to do it by hand in each car. That was a big improvement for safety. And then trains started using steel tracks instead of iron. Steel was stronger, so it made the trains safer and able to carry more stuff. They even made refrigerated train cars that kept meat cold, which was great for people who wanted fresh meat far away from where it was produced. This made the meat industry successful. After the Civil War, many companies built train lines to compete with each other. This was good for people who wanted to ride trains because it meant lower prices. No company could charge too much because folks could find a cheaper train to ride. Train lines expanded all over the country, and in 1869, two of them met in the middle to make a really long train line from coast to coast, a transcontinental railroad. This was a big deal because it meant that things, people, and opportunities could travel quickly all across the country. At this point in the recording, we're done reading the text. Please take some time to answer. Again, the questions on page 1 and page 2 are